Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the Foothill Gold Line Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome you to today's industry workshop. I'm Doug Tessiter, Chairman of the Foothill Gold Line Board of Directors. With me today are Sam Pedroza, our Board Vice Chairman. He's also Chairman of the project's Joint Powers Authority, and he's a City Council member from the City of Claremont. You're not mayor anymore, right? Also with us this morning is John Fasana, Los Angeles County's Metro Board Chairman and Metro's representative to the Foothill Gold Line Construction Authority Board, and I'll have more to say about that guy in a minute. Gene Masuda is not here yet. Oh, yes, you are. You were looking down. Gene Masuda is our newest member of the board, and Dan Evans is not here yet. Dan Evans represents the city of South Pasadena on the board. Finally, I want to recognize the Gold Line Construction Authority CEO, Habib Balian. Habib will be speaking in a few minutes and will introduce some of the other members of our outstanding team. Today's industry workshop marks the beginning of the procurement phase for the Glendora to Montclair project, a day many of us have been working for many years. With Measure M's passage last November, the vast majority of the funding needed for this project was secured. And because the Construction Authority was able to complete the last segment from Pasadena to Azusa under budget, we were able to kick off the Glendora to Montclair segment a few years earlier than anticipated in Measure M by using residual Measure R dollars. The Foothill Gold Line team has spent the last few years preparing the nearly $1.4 billion project for the two contracts that will be discussed today. I want to personally thank all of them for their hard work in preparing the project to a point where we will be breaking ground just a few short months from now. I'm happy to see so many representatives of the industry here today to learn about the upcoming work. I wish you all good luck in your efforts to be part of changing the fabric of our region for generations to come. Of course, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for LA County Metro and their bold vision for expanding our county's transportation infrastructure. And it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker. He is a man that really needs no introduction. He has been leading the Metro Board of Directors for this past historic year. He's a member of the Foothill Gold Line Board of Directors, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Duarte, and he's also a member of many other regional boards that deal with keeping us all moving. He is someone who probably breathes, sweats, and dreams in transportation. Please help me welcome my good friend, Metro Board Chairman John Fasana.
Well, thank you, Doug, and good morning, everyone. You know, really, events like this give you pause to think back to how things were, and remembering back to the late 80s, early 90s, thinking about this right-of-way up here that had been largely abandoned and then was purchased by the County Transportation Commission at the time, the predecessor to Metro, and seeing that this rail renaissance was starting to take place. You had the opening of the Blue Line, I think, back in 1990. And I guess all I can say is there any doubt that people will ride rail anymore in this county? No, I think people are looking for any and all options that will help make their commute more pleasurable and more predictable. So looking back into the early 90s and seeing all the plans that evolved, it was a very interesting history where ultimately to preserve the ability of the Gold Line to move forward to Pasadena, the separate construction authority was created by Congressman Adam Schiff through his legislation. You've been hearing a lot about that guy lately with other more national concerns and international concerns. But it allowed the Gold Line to be built on time and on budget through Pasadena. And for us, we're further east, we saw that as a down payment on the eventual hope and dream of getting the line extended further. So with the passage of Measure R in 2008, it did not take the line to Claremont as many advertised, but it did provide funding to get us to our terminus today at Citrus College in Azusa, Glendora. So now we sit before you. We've had a very interesting year. 71% of voters approved Measure M this past November. Again, whether it be out of pure desperation or frustration with their current commutes or confidence in the plans that Metro put forward, there was a strong vote of support for a program that really, for the most part, includes massive investments in transit and rail construction as well. Very little in the way of highway construction. Up in the North County, there's some segments, but I think the realization in Los Angeles County is that our road system is pretty much built out, and we're going to have what we have now for the foreseeable future. But we will have a lot more people using it. So the rail investment becomes extremely important. What we've seen, though, over the past few years with Metro CEO Phil Washington coming aboard, we've seen an incredible level of cooperation now between Metro and the Foothill Gold Line Construction Authority. We are confident that we have the resources available. Metro is with us. And from the days when we used to have to persuade Metro to try and do something with this rail corridor here, they are fully on board and ready to see this project move forward. It will be one of the earliest groundbreakings under Measure M, and we expect that another on-time, on-budget effort taking us to Montclair will help spread the entire San Gabriel Valley, and it will be Metro's first foray into another county, into San Bernardino County. So Metro is extremely excited by what this project offers. They're also excited, of course, about the other projects underway, the Crenshaw line, eventual connectivity to LAX. But I think we're hoping that in San Bernardino County that call is answered with the connections into Ontario Airport as well. But that remains to a later phase. Right now we're looking at Montclair. We have the funding available, and what we need to do is translate that into a completed and constructed line that'll meet the demand of our riders out here. So we know many of you here will be able to partner with us. We look forward to seeing you sharpen your pencils, I should say. Dot the I's, cross the T's, scratch out the dollar amounts, enter in something lower if you can do so. Be competitive. But it's a very exciting time for us. We really are looking forward to getting back fabulous proposals. I know we start with the utility relocation work, then we've got the larger construction efforts as well. But it really is a time of true excitement. And I think we're seeing, in my city of Duarte, since the line opened near City of Hope, we're seeing transformation. People are a lot more interested now in some of the sites adjacent to the rail stations. We're seeing interesting decisions by people that we had no idea might be thinking of how the value of the line might impact their businesses. City of Hope has purchased other properties adjacent to other rail stations. The Duarte Unified School District is partnering with the California School of the Arts out of Santa Ana to create another campus, and part of the reason they wanted to come to Duarte was the proximity to the Gold Line station for people throughout the San Gabriel Valley that will go to that campus, which will also benefit the Duarte School District. So this can be very exciting. I mean, one example, we're looking at connections to our colleges, the Claremont colleges, LA County Fairplex. We anticipate that ridership will increase by more than 18,000 per day when this new extension is open. So again, we're extremely excited, and a lot of this work, particularly for the recently completed phase, has been overseen by Habib Balian, who has done an absolutely fantastic job bringing this project to fruition on time and under budget. Habib certainly worked for many years in transportation with Supervisor Mike Antonovich, also did a stint at Metro, and has always had a passion for this great project. So we're fortunate to have him. Habib, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak this morning. It's an outstanding day. This really is really the kickoff for the next phase of our construction. So I look forward to working with you while still with Metro. I won't be chair after June, but we look forward to working with you as we bring this project to fruition. And Habib, I'll introduce you at this time. Please come forward.
Good morning. John, thank you very much, and as always, thank you for your leadership and your hard work. And this project clearly wouldn't have gotten to where it is today, let alone the past phases, without your help at Metro and your dedication to this project. When I look out at this group today, I see a lot of familiar faces, people that I saw at one of these in 2000. Another group of you were here in 2010. And for those of you who are here again, here we go again. This is a great project. I'm very pleased to come off of a big success, success that I take all the credit for doing it all alone. But to have a team, seriously, to have a team where you can complete a project, have the momentum, and then go right into another project, it's just a dream. So we want to take advantage of that momentum. I want to introduce some of my key staff. Chris Berner is our Chief Project Officer. You're going to hear from him later, as well as Mitch Purcell, our Chief Contracting Officer and in-house counsel. Crandall Jew, our Chief Financial Officer, is here. Lisa Levy-Bush, our Chief Communications Officer, and of course Lisa planned this event, so Lisa, thank you very much for putting this together. John Scory, our Program Manager. His team from Ricky Haramoto, our Chief Project Officer. Dennis Kanoyer, Director of Engineering. Phil Dinetz, Director of Systems, Connie Levinson, Engineering Manager, and the rest of the Authority and Hill team. Could you just stand up so everyone knows who you are? So when they want some real answers to real questions, they know who to go to. There you go, all of you guys in the back there. I also want to introduce Rena Salcedo. Rena is going to speak shortly as part of the panel discussion from GCAP. Rena, are you here? Oh, there you are. Okay, great, Rena. Thank you. I'm going to walk through now our agenda and what we're going to be talking about this morning. We want to be very respectful of your time, so we want to keep this brief and get all the important information out there. There will be, I just want to reiterate, there will be an opportunity to regroup with folks and do some networking after the event closes. We still have the room, so you're welcome to stay behind. Also, there are index cards on your seats. If you have questions, feel free to jot them down. We're going to collect them and sort through them and answer the questions at the end of the program. We're going to walk through, the good news is, half of our agenda is done so far, so we're in good shape. We're going to talk about the Construction Authority, our timeline and readiness, our funding, the overall project, what we're going to be doing, the business opportunities, the SBE program, and of course the next steps and where we're going to go from here. But I'll just dive right into talking about the Construction Authority. As you know, we're a separate agency. We are not Metro. We were carved out of Metro's planning back in the late 90s when then State Senator Adam Schiff saw this project wasn't getting built, created a separate authority, handed them the keys to the project basically, and it was up to the authority to sink or swim. We got that legislation, we moved ahead with the project, we have all those powers necessary to build the project using design-build methods, eminent domain, et cetera. We have our own independent board of directors. You met Doug Tessiter today, who's a member of our board, as is John Fasana and Sam Pedroza, and Jean Masuda. We have this independent board, and we have the ability to work with Metro to build a project to their satisfaction long term. They're going to inherit this project, they must operate it. We build it to their design specs, you can imagine if you haven't seen the design specs, and we want them to be satisfied with the quality of the project and something that they'll be able to operate safely for generations to come. Independent board of directors that represent the entire geography of the project. Very proud to say we have community consensus. Elected officials at all levels, starting at the congressional level, all support this project and have fought for this project at different times when necessary to build this $3 billion investment. As you know, we're building it in 3 phases. The first phase, 13.7 miles, was from Union Station to Pasadena, opened in 2003, on time and on budget. The next segment, Pasadena to Azusa, opened last year, on time and on budget, and we're looking forward to Glendora to Montclair being the same success. In fact, it's my contract. If I don't build it on time, on budget, you guys don't get paid. I like to say that we're very fortunate at the Construction Authority. While Metro is looking at this huge map and this multi-billion-dollar investment through Prop A, Prop C, Measure R, Measure M, that they have to solve world hunger, and yet we're lucky. We only have to worry about one thing, in the San Gabriel Valley project. So we put all of our energies. When you walk through the door, you know, everybody there is working on one project, and it's very fortunate to have an agency that's set up with this model, and it's been a success, and we look forward to continuing that success within our jurisdiction all the way to Montclair. With regard to project readiness, these projects, you know, take many, many years to get going. Ours started really with the completion of the first phase of the project from Union Station to Pasadena. We started the environmental work, got the planning going, did all the work necessary to finally get to a point where we have a completed EIR, and we were able to start advanced conceptual engineering. And as Doug mentioned earlier, that was really the key, I think, to our success getting us here today, is we had this seed money from residual Measure R. Yes, it's true, we built the project and we had money left over, and we were able to use that money to start the advanced conceptual engineering to get us to a point where we have a real good idea of what the project is and real specificity on what we're going to be looking forward, and hopefully you'll agree when you get our packages out later this year. The advanced conceptual engineering was completed, and we had comments back from all the cities. And we have the verification set out there, and we're answering all those questions with the cities, but basically the verification set is now complete, and we look forward to substantial completion on this project in 2025, 2026. So key to our success is the advanced conceptual engineering. It looks at everything we need to do with the cities, our involvement with SCRRA, making sure we understand the grade crossings, what we're going to actually build, how it's going to affect Metrolink and freight, and allow us to do all the freight relocation and potential Claremont station relocation as part of this project. We know all this information through this advanced conceptual engineering. We're able to put a phasing plan together and get a real good idea of what this project is going to take to build. We are breaking ground in October, as many of you know, using the residual Measure R funds. This gives us an advantage to get out there, relocate utilities in advance of the big design build contract, and that when the Measure M funds start to flow to us in 2019, we will already be geared up, our procurement obviously well underway, and we'll be able to take advantage of getting the project going sooner, and as Mr. Fasana said, the first Measure R project to be into construction. We expect the project to take 6 to 7 years from the groundbreaking of the contract, the DB2 contract. Generally, we see this project as 2 projects in one. The first one being the utility relocation. We'll award that contract in October. Then we'll award the big alignment contract, which will be basically a year later in late 2018. Contractor will come in with the design build team. The designers will come in, complete the final design, and then they'll go ahead and start the first project, which is the relocation of the freight and Metrolink, and then move into the light rail construction. It's a big project. We are bracing our cities for the length of time of this project and the duration, but also the amount of construction that's going to be taking place within the cities. And we hopefully we're guiding them to understand how the schedule is going to work. And we always tell them that if a good design build team comes out and sees our schedule, they can come up with a whole different way to skin a cat, and maybe they have a different schedule that they can use, and we're happy to see that. With regard to the all-important funding, as it was mentioned earlier, a substantial amount of the funding is coming through Measure M. We have residual Measure R dollars and other dollars from Metro coming in. We right now show about $138 million shortfall. We're going to be working to close that gap over the next several months. We're going to be looking to the state and also at other local resources. Many of you also know that all the funding from Measure M, Measure R, all the county funds must stay within LA County. Everything beyond the county line from Claremont to Montclair is on San Bernardino's dime. So we have an estimate right now of about $70 million for their phase of the project. We'll be working with them over the next couple years to get that funding known to us and committed. We show a couple $100 million shortfall overall, and we're putting a plan together to address that. And now I'm going to introduce Chris Berner, and Chris is going to give you a project overview. And Chris.
Good morning. It is a great pleasure to be here among the people who are going to ultimately build our project that we're very proud of. I'm going to give you an overview of the project. This is a map of the alignment. It is 12.3 miles. It runs roughly parallel to the 210. It goes through 6 cities, two different counties. It is, as I said, it's 12.3 miles long of light rail track. That track is generally at grade. There are several grade separations throughout the alignment. It is a typical light rail project, very similar to what we built on the previous phase we call 2A from Pasadena to Azusa. It does have, most notably about the project is it does have a shared corridor throughout with freight trains, BNSF freight, and with Metrolink service. As I said, it goes through 6 cities. Each city has a station. And those cities are Glendora, San Dimas, Laverne, Pomona, Claremont, and Montclair. This is a map that kind of breaks out the shared corridor. The first 10.4 miles of it is very similar to the eastern 3.5 miles of our last project. It is shared with the BNSF freight track. Unfortunately, that BNSF freight track is in the middle of the alignment, and we are going to have to relocate it to one side or the other. We're going to have to completely rebuild it to the north or to the south, depending on where you are in the alignment, to make room for the light rail system on the other side. And then as we get into the city of Claremont, we begin to share the corridor with the Metrolink double tracks through there. Those tracks will have to be relocated as well. And obviously that is a significant challenge to the project. And that was where Habib mentioned the 2 projects in one. The freight and Metrolink tracks have to be relocated prior to building the light rail system. There are a lot of grade crossings on the project. There's 46 total. 28 of those are at grade. 10 are pedestrian crossings at the stations. 10 are grade separations at various different locations. 3 of the at-grade crossings we're currently under review that may potentially become grade separations. So there may be more grade separations as we advance the planning of the project. And the pedestrian grade crossing at San Dimas will ultimately become a grade separation. This shows a list of all the crossings. We have been working over the past several years with all the project stakeholders. There's quite a few. I've been working with the corridor cities, Metro, SCRA, BNSF, to establish consensus of the configuration of those crossings. The ones that are white or not highlighted, we have general consensus and we are moving forward with those applications. We hope to have them submitted in June or July. The ones that are in yellow require some additional analysis. They are generally the ones in the Metrolink corridor where we will have 4 tracks and commuter rail traffic and light rail traffic. There's also quite a few structures on the project. There's 14 crossings that are going to require a bridge. Some of these locations will require multiple bridges because of the separation of the light rail and the freight. Based on that, we will have 23 bridges. 18 will be new, 3 will be modifications of an existing, and 2 will be total replacements. Here is a list of the bridges. We've kind of broken them out into major bridges and minor structures that generally cross over washes and creeks, throughout the alignment. The project will be built to all the applicable design standards. We have quite a few on the project. There's all the Metro standards that the project will be built, that the light rail system will be built to. And then for the freight and for Metrolink system, it will be built to SCRA standards. There's a few sections of Caltrans work. That work will be done on using Caltrans standards. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has some crossings that we will have to go over, and we'll have to obtain permits for that and follow all of their standards as well. The project has a significant amount of parking. That is a significant element of this project. You can see the smallest parking structure we have is 420 spaces at Glendora. Then San Dimas has 450 parking spaces in a new structure. Laverne 600 in a new structure. Pomona 850 spaces in a new structure. Claremont 1,260 spaces in a new structure. And then at Montclair, there's an existing surface parking lot that there will be some relatively minor modifications needed at that station, at that parking lot. We are working very hard to design the station areas and the parking facilities to be multimodal, to prompt people to walk to the station, ride bikes to the station, to ride buses and shuttles to the station. So we're making sure we have that infrastructure in place to encourage that alternate modes of travel other than just by the car. As I said, it's very similar to the previous project that we built from Pasadena to Azusa. There are some differences. The parking is much more substantial. We are using pedestrian undercrossings and overcrossings at these stations. On this project, all of the stations are center platforms, and they all have public entrances on both sides of those stations. And that has resulted in the need for some pedestrian undercrossings and overcrossings to access the station. We also, on this project, we are required to have pedestrian fare gates. Metro has changed their design criteria from the standalone validator to a gated system. So it will include gates, fare gates. The list of some of the project challenges, as I said, it's a shared corridor. So throughout almost the entire project, the BNSF track is going to have to be completely reconstructed. And then about 2 miles of the Metrolink track will have to be reconstructed in the Claremont area and stretching into Montclair. That will have to be done while maintaining the double track service for Metrolink and maintaining the service for BNSF. So that is quite a challenge that will have to be taken on in the project. We also have to relocate the Claremont Metrolink station. Right now it is on the west side of College Avenue, and it's going to be reconstructed on the east side of College Avenue. And service will have to be maintained at that station while the new station is being built and being transitioned over to the new station. There are 28 at-grade crossings. That will be a challenge. There are certain restrictions on not being able to work on adjacent grade crossings. Certain times of the year, grade crossings will not be able to be worked on depending on the location. There's also a lot of bridges on the project. We have 23. And there's a large number of stakeholders on the project. There are 6 cities. There are 2 counties. We stretch out into San Bernardino County. We'll be working very closely with Metro. They are the ultimate end user of the light rail system. And then SCRRA is also a very important partner of the project. Because we'll be relocating their service, and we have to, maintain their system as well. We also have to work with the Caltrans. Not a large amount of work with Caltrans, but and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as well as a number of utility companies and other in L.A. County and San Bernardino County, and also SBCTA as well as we enter into San Bernardino County. At this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Mitch Purcell.
Good morning. I'm Chief Contracting Officer and in-house counsel for the Foothill Gold Line. So I'm running the procurements, which begin today. So we'll get into what that means in a little bit. What I'm going to do is talk about how we're procuring the project as a whole, including the 2 design. One is a design bid build contract, and the other is a design build contract. And then I'll look into each of those in greater detail. We call it DB1. I guess we should call it DBB1 for design bid build. Nonetheless, DB1 is utility relocation. So what the construction authority is doing in advance of the alignment contract, I'll put that up here as well, is to have as many of the utilities either protected in place or relocated as possible. A large part of that is the wet utilities that are contemplated by the utility relocation package, DB1. Separately from that, the construction authority is working with some third-party utilities who are under an obligation through an MOU with us. They self-perform the utility relocation or protect-in-place work. So in-house, the authority is doing some utility work, but that is not part of DB1. DB1 has to do with these wet utilities, we'll see a little bit more about what that is. For the alignment project, you've heard quite a bit. They're the two main aspects of that project, the relocation of the freight rail, and then also the construction of the light rail, as well as grade separations, grade crossing stations, public outreach, and as well as other items. Big picture procurement schedule. We'll get into the more detailed schedule for each of the two contracts. And I see some scribbling notes. I think we are putting this PowerPoint on the internet tomorrow on our website, foothillgoldline.org. So feel free to take notes, but also it will be available. We recognize that the design build contractors, if you haven't talked to anyone yet, you're not too late, but I would, it's not my business, but I would get involved as quickly as possible. Some of those teams I think are already forming and will continue to form up until about October. We are at the industry workshop, and in July we'll be formally issuing the RFB, the request for bids for the utility relocation contract, with an award in September. The RFQ, we have a two-step process for the alignment contract, which we'll get into in a minute. The first one is to get a short list of contractors. That begins in November. Those proposals, the SOQs will be due in January. Industry review draft and the short list will be determined in February, with an RFP issued in May and contract award in October. So the utility relocation project, again, it's mostly protect in place. Tomorrow, we will be putting on the website an industry review draft or a draft of the RFB and the contract drawings. That's not a complete document package. That's going to be the RFB, which is just what you have to put in your proposal, some of the requirements for that, as well as the contract drawings. The full general conditions and special provisions, that'll be issued in July 5th. The idea there is that if you note, there's not a lot of time between July 5th and September 13th, so we wanted to give contractors an opportunity to get a sense of what this project is in advance of the formal issuance of the RFB. We will have questions and answers period, and with a board award anticipated at the end of September. As of tomorrow, I am the single point of contact. But before you go through and start sending me emails, all the questions, I will be pointing first to the RFB. There are provisions within the RFB that talk about the communication process and requirements, restrictions, et cetera, including submitting written questions and answers. But if you are best friends with Dennis Canoyer and some other staff, talk to them about anything else except this procurement as of today. So we issue the industry review draft tomorrow. July 5th, we'll be issuing the final RFB, questions and answers, and again, it's design bid build. So we'll be awarding to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. So in more detail, the scope is the construction of 5 reinforced concrete encasement protection for existing VCP sewer lines that are crossing the railroad right-of-way, and then the construction of 5 steel split casing protection for existing water lines crossing the railroad right-of-way. And if you notice at the end of each of those, and this is something I wanted to take this opportunity to emphasize, we are working within existing rail right-of-way. Those are active freight corridors. So it's not just the same as doing utility work if you were in a city. This is for contractors who have experience working in active rail corridors. Some of those requirements are set forth in the RFB, but it is operated by SCRA, and they will have an employee in charge. There's restricted access to the rail right-of-way. There's specific training that needs to occur. So please pay attention to those requirements if you're considering this job, which we hope you are. Basically, if it's not in this contract, you'll find it here. The alignment project, which we call DB2, is a design build contract. The schedule for that begins, it's going to be 2 phases. The request for qualifications is in November, with the statements of qualifications due in January. From there, we evaluate those statements of qualifications and issue the industry review draft in February. The RFP is going in May. Proposals are due in September with an anticipated board award in October. The goal of the whole SOQ process is to create a short list of the most qualified firms. We do that by looking at 4 criteria: related project experience, staff and qualifications, legal, and financial. As we produce our RFP, part of our philosophy, and mine in particular, is that in order to have good contract implementation in a successful project, that begins the development of the RFP and to work with the contractors, peers, and all the local stakeholders so that when we get to the point of the starting line, we have a good contract that there's buy-in, people have seen and have become comfortable with. We don't take every suggestion, but we take them all very seriously. So that begins with a peer review of our RFP doc process. We bring in third parties to look at what we're doing, make sure there's no blind spot. Our own team believes very much in our work product, but we also think they need to be checked every once in a while by third parties. The industry review process is where we do most of our introspection, a very robust process there. We take input from the corridor cities and the various agencies with whom we are closely aligned in this project, Metro, SCRA, and Sandbag, which of course is now SBCTA in San Bernardino County, as well as the proposers who have been shortlisted. We have a Q&A process. We'll issue addendas necessary. And then when proposals are due in October, we reserve the right to award on the basis of those proposals, or if we deem it necessary, we can go through what the FTA considers a discussion process and request final and revised bids. Within this scope of work, again, the two projects at the same time, not DB1, DB2, but within DB2, there's relocation of freight and then the building of the light rail. New structures, drainage. Chris Berner has already gone through a lot of the scope in greater detail, but then we have at-grade passenger stations, parking facilities, TPSS and OCS, grade crossings, landscaping and art elements. And also within that scope of work, we have a community outreach and relations. We involve our communities very closely with the project so that, you know, a little bit of ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. So in order to get us to that place, we are developing the advanced conceptual engineering to 30%, more or less. And on some elements, we're at 60%. For instance, the street improvements, freight bridges, and portions of the Metrolink corridor. The main responsibilities of the design builder are, of course, to design it all the way through, and then to build all the project elements, to test the complete LRT system, again, community outreach, as well as to coordinate with the various agencies that are involved, including all of the cities, Metro, SCRA, SBCTA, and others. And now I will hand it over to Irina from GCAP. They do our small business SBE program. Thanks.
Hello, how's everybody doing? My name is Rena Salcedo, and I am the Small Business Enterprise Program Coordinator here at the Construction Authority. I had the pleasure of speaking with some of you out in the exhibit booth right outside the hall, and it's great to see such a large interest in this project. So I'm going to talk to you about the Small Business Enterprise Program, the objectives, the eligibility, some opportunities we see available for small businesses, and how we work together to monitor our progress towards our goals for that program. Okay, so the purpose of the Small Business Program here, and it's the SBE program for Small Business Enterprise, is to provide equal opportunity for small businesses to participate in the Construction Authority's projects. We just heard about 2 projects coming up, or 2 contracts that will be coming up, and we heard about the solicitation schedule and so on. We've got the utilities relocation project, and we have the Phase 2B alignment, which is the alignment that is going to Montclair. We anticipate that there will be dozens and dozens of subcontracting opportunities available for those projects. And I'll get into specifically some of the work areas that there will be subcontracting opportunities, or that we would anticipate there to be subcontracting opportunities in a little bit later. The goal for the small business enterprise, the aspirational small business enterprise goal is 16.6%. Now, each contract may have their own contract goal, but this is really the goal that we want to work towards at the Construction Authority. And we take this very seriously. We want to ensure that small business enterprises, that the participation of them is equal to or greater than 16.6% of the contracting opportunities available. And just to give you an idea, for the previous alignment, we had a goal of about 16%, and I believe we had a small business utilization of about 18%. So we do really take this seriously. The eligibility criteria, what is a small business? So we take a look at, we accept a couple of different certifications, and as some of you know who are certified, the certifications have varying eligibility criteria. There are various agencies that certify. The eligibility criteria will be defined by location, by ownership, and by size. And size is usually the actual number of employees or gross receipts, gross revenue. So we'll talk a little bit about the certifications that we accept under this program. For this program, we accept the LA County Metro certification, and that is an SPE certification. The State of California Department of General Services certification, and the City of Los Angeles certification. We will accept other certifications on a case-by-case basis. And just to give you an idea, in terms of, we do have a lot of certified firms here because I did speak to some of you, but we do have some that are not certified that are eligible. And just to give you some turnaround times, don't quote me on this, but this is from our experience. For LA Metro, certification turnaround is usually about 3 months. However, if you're pursuing a contract with LA Metro, you can get that down to 1 month. And this is assuming that all of the required documentation is submitted in its completion. For the City of LA, that process can take from 3 to 6 months. And for DGS, this is a self-certification process, and you can get it done in about a month. So it may take a little bit longer. And the LA Metro and DGS, it's a completely online process now to get certified. The City of LA, you can do an application process on paper, or you can do this online. I'm going to go ahead and talk about and just briefly go over the eligibility criteria for each of those certifications from those certifying agencies. Okay, so we have the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Metro, and the certification requirements are that it meets the Small Business Administration size standard per the 13S, excuse me, so it's even a mouthful for me, CFR Part 121. And essentially, depending on your NAICS code, there will be various standards, gross revenue standards. And so it really depends on your line of work, and there are too many NAICS codes to list here. But you can look that up on the website. Also, gross receipts, they have to be an average of less than 23.99 million per year. They want that for the last 3 years. The business must be owned and controlled by one or more individuals whose personal net worth is less than $1.32 million. And the ownership must be at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more individuals with that net worth of less than $1.32 million. For DGS, the business has to be independently owned and operated, not dominant in its field of operation, principal office located in California, owners also living in California, and you have to have 100 or fewer employees, annual gross receipts of 50 million or less. If you're a manufacturer with 100 or fewer employees, then annual gross receipts of 3.5 million, or a manufacturer with 25 or fewer employees, which is a micro business. City of Los Angeles. Your principal office must be located in the county of Los Angeles. You have to have a LA business tax registration certificate, and gross receipts for your business must be less than 3 million for a previous fiscal year. Okay, so we got that stuff out of the way. Now, small business opportunities. And I just want to note, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list that we've developed by taking a look at the engineer estimate, and also from our experience with the Phase 2A alignment, which was the previous alignment. And these are the high dollar items that we had participation of small business enterprises in for the previous alignment, and also items that we see that there are available opportunities for participation for this alignment. And this is available by the exhibit table right outside of the hall, there's a display board if anybody wants to take a picture of that. And if the presentation is available on the website, then you can also grab this from there. But just to read some off, we have water and sewer lines, power and communication lines, poured concrete foundation, structural steel and precast concrete, framing, masonry, roofing, glass and glazing, fire protection, hazardous waste collection, graphic design services, signal and communication design, trucking, landscaping, mobilization, flooring, electrical wiring, and so on. So we work together with the prime contractor to really monitor our progress towards including small businesses within these opportunities. As you heard, we have a design build contract and we have a design bid build contract. And depending on each contract, we may have different requirements. So for example, the good faith effort, that is for the design bid build contract. Because we have the team defined up front, then we would have the good faith effort requirement required up front. However, for the alignment project, which is design build, because you have the SOQs, and then you have a short list, and from that short list you select the prime contractor, it doesn't really make sense to require all of the good faith effort documentation up front. So we work with a prime contractor to get those requirements in line in a subcontracting plan and to ensure that we continuously are reaching out in good faith to subcontractors that are SPE subcontractors for any of the work that is coming along down the pipeline throughout the project. And the subcontracting plan, the types of things we list in there are, there will be, if there's a contract goal, obviously, we list the commitment levels by work area, anticipated dollars that we'd see available to small business enterprises, and our policies and procedures for keeping with our good faith effort to reach out to these small business enterprises. And that is actually not just a document that we toss aside or ignore, but we monitor monthly against that subcontracting document. And we, with every invoice, the prime contractor is required to submit their payments made to small businesses. And we take a real-time utilization every month, and we compare that against the subcontracting plan. And we might say, hey, well, you said that there were some opportunities for landscaping totaling this dollar amount. When are you going? And that might happen later, obviously later in the project, much later. How's that going? Have you outreached to anybody or any small business enterprises interested? And so we keep tabs on this every single month throughout the project. And finally, we've talked about some of the opportunities. So how do you get in front of these prime contractors? If you pre-registered for the event, then you were automatically added to an interest list. If you did not pre-register and you weren't added to an interest list, then you can come see me at the exhibit table in the back, just right outside of the hall. And that will be provided to, this project interest list will be provided to the shortlisted prime contractors for the alignment. And also, as was mentioned before, for the utility project, because that's coming up soon, people are putting their teams together. Today's a great opportunity to really network and to get out there and get in front of some of these potential proposers. And that pretty much concludes the small business program. I will be available for questions during the Q&A, and I will also be at the exhibit table if you have any really specific questions that need to be answered. Thank you all for your attention.
All right, just talking next steps. We have, sorry. Mitch, why don't you come up? This is yours? Okay, sorry.
Sorry. Nope, nobody wants to do my job. Right, DB1, DB2 is in 2 steps. So for DB1, again, tomorrow, we'll be posting the draft, a portion of the draft RFB on our website, as well as some of the drawings. So by all means, please check in there. And again, if you're not registered on our business opportunities list, in addition to the small business thing, just in general, that's how the best way to hear about our procurement opportunities, both here and some of the smaller ones that will be just the operations of the agency as we gear up to perform these procurements and this work. The formal RFB is issued July 5th. The RFQs, and so I would draw your attention in this final slide to the issue dates. The RFQs are issuing in November, the early November. And the RFP process is there, but really in order to be part of DB2 as a prime, you want to look for November to get in line for the RFQ process and begin that. I think it's, right now on my schedule, it's for the first week of November.
Okay, we're happy to answer any questions you have. Please fill out the cards. They should be on your seats. I have a few. I don't know if you have any more. So I'll just jump right in and get started with the questions that I already have. The first one, will the team that wins DB1 be precluded from bidding on DB2? I'll turn that over to Mitch.
No, they will not. If you perform DB1, you will also be eligible to work on DB2.
Okay, thank you. What is the anticipated contract size for each of these 2 contracts? Chris, you want to take that?
Yes. On the first contract, the utility contract, we've not yet completed an engineer's estimate for that, but we believe it to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a $3 million contract. For the larger DB2 contract, we have completed an engineer's estimate, and it was $698 million.
This is also regarding the utility contract. The utility contract seemed to include only wet utilities. Will the contract also include relocation of dry utilities?
Yes, that is correct. The utility contract does only contain wet utilities. Right now it's protection in place of water lines and sewers. But we are, in a separate effort, the construction authority is working with some dry utilities to identify utilities that need to be relocated in advance of the project. Generally, these utilities do the design and construction themselves, so we are taking care of that coordination in this phase of the project.
Will community outreach be part of both contracts, or will that task have a separate contract?
Yes, community relations will be part of both of the contracts. A very important part of the DB2 contract. As Mitch pointed out, we are an organization that is very sensitive to our community that we are building our project in. As Mitch mentioned, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so we're a big believer in getting out in front of that and keeping the community informed to minimize the impact on them. A project going through their community is impactful, and we want to keep them informed as much as possible and minimize the impacts as much as possible.
We mentioned earlier the PowerPoint will be available online, and yes, we will also have a list of attendees available online as well. Today it'll be listed today. Can the potential primes in the room identify themselves? Primes, you want to stand up? Give us an idea who you are. Don't be shy.
Even if you don't want to, would you please stand up?
All right, very good. Get their picture. That's it. It's not a good-looking group, but it's a lucky group. Let's see. If I am already certified at SBE with LA Metro, do I have to do anything else?
If you are already certified with LA Metro, no, you do not have to do anything else. That is one of the certifications that we accept under this SBE program here at the Construction Authority.
Next question, how much railroad background do you have to have for the utility relocation project? Chris, you talked a little bit about that earlier.
Yes, it is a very important part of that project. All of that relocation work occurs within a freight railroad right-of-way. It is regulated by the FRA. It does require an employee in charge who will dictate when the contractor can enter the right-of-way to do the work. All the employees doing the work will have to be trained. Will have to go through an SCRA training program. And it is hazardous work, working around railroad, active freight. And so it's a very important part of that contract to have experience in doing that kind of work.
Flipping through some of these, it looks like they were written by some of your staff, Chris. What is the rationale for taking street improvement design to 60%? And why don't I get overtime? No, that wasn't.
Well, we, in meeting with, the idea was to try to reduce risk in the project. Based on our past experience on the last project, there were some changes once we had that design complete and approved by the PUC. We had to go back a few times. So we want to try to reduce that risk as much as possible. The cities also ask for it, and we also want to try to get a jump start on the project. That's why we advanced certain elements of the project to 60%. One other element was the freight bridges. And we're doing that because that's obviously a part of the critical path of the schedule. You have to relocate the freight before you can build the light rail. A critical element of relocating the freight is building the freight bridges. So the idea was to squeeze out some risk in the project and to get a jump start on the project and to bring consensus among the corridor cities as well as other stakeholders like Metro and SCRA.
There's a question, will the authority make the SBE goal analysis for 2B contracts available? And yes, we will. We'll make that available to the prime contractors. This is a great question. Where's the new rail yard for storage and maintenance of the vehicles? We have no rail yard to build. So that's great news for us. So the rail yard that was built in Monrovia will accommodate, has expansion capacity of up to 84 vehicles. So it'll be able to, that fleet will be maintained here in Monrovia. When will the interest list and list of primes be available for us to view? That'll be available today, presumably, or today-ish. Okay. Will there be any noise monitoring services be required during any phase of construction?
Yes, we do have certain noise monitoring requirements and limitations within the community, certain work hour limitations as well. Basically comply with whatever city the work is being performed in.
Will parking structures be included in the LRT contract? The answer is yes. This is if it's not in the utility relocation contract, everything else is in the DB2. Will an alignment project include all electrification, train control, fare collection, communication elements in accordance with LA Metro criteria?
Yes, it does. The fare collection, that will all be included in the DB2 contract, with the slight exception of the fare collection system. The DB2 contractor will be responsible for installing the infrastructure, and then Metro will actually procure the ticket vending equipment, and they will install it.
Will there be a PLA?
No.
Will the authority issue an RFP for material testing and special inspection services?
That is, no. That is, we have hired, in general, the design builder will be responsible for performing those activities. We do have Hill International, our PMCM contractor. They may go through some process to hire someone to do that, but we generally do very limited testing ourselves. We rely on the design builder. We might do some spot testing.
Mitch, this is for you. What will the SBE DBE goal be?
We have no federal funds. The SBE goal is the 16.6%. It's an aspirational goal. See, Rena.
Will the SBE goal apply separately to the design and construction side for the total goal? Or is the authority interested in the total, only interested in the total?
The goal applies to both contracts, DB1 and DB2, but it is stated for the agency's purpose as an overall project goal, so it would be folded in, but it does apply in both cases.
Would authority provide track allocation and flagging for BNSF and Metrolink?
We are still working that out with the SCRA on the design, the large contract, the DB2 contract, and as well as both of them. So we're still working that on phase 2A. The design builder was responsible for providing their own EIC protection on the project.
Would QA/QC be excluded from DB1?
The contractor will do some QC, but they will not do quality assurance.
How will you handle CM? Will there be a separate CM contract? No. How much team details is needed for DB2 SOQ submittal? All team members, an org chart, or key staff, key firms? Mitch?
I'm trying to figure out how to provide some responsive information without getting into all the detail because, quite frankly, we haven't drafted that document yet. It's not absolutely everyone, but it is usually relates to the material contractor, so the major players of the team would be required to put forth their recommendation, to what the team would be like. So we don't need a complete team tree, but let me try and get some information about that out. When we post the question and answer results on our website, I won't have my answer today, but tomorrow and forthcoming, I'll put a written answer to that one.
Is the overall SBE goal of 16.6% a goal or requirement? It's an aspirational goal. Okay. You have more questions? The last one. Any more questions? We're winding down here. What is the work hours for DB1 utility relocation? Until it gets done.
Yes. Depending on the location, those hours will be set. I think in general, in the freight section, we are looking to do the work during the day. There's only one freight train a day that goes through there. It's a round trip. But in that section, we believe it should be work during the day based on whatever city the work is being performed in.
Okay, very good. One more question? You can just shout it out if you want.
The question I have is regarding the percentage of completion, design completion for DB2. What is the design completion for each one of the
Well, it's going to vary, but in aggregate, it's probably around a 30% total. Some elements we are advancing to 60%, as was shown on that slide. They include the roadway work, grade crossings, freight bridges, and the Metrolink corridor. Those elements we are advancing to a 60% level. Once again, the idea behind that is to ensure we have good stakeholder buy-in on those elements of work, to advance the design further, to get a jump start on those elements. Many of those elements are critical path elements of the project, and so the idea is to get a jump start on those elements of the work.
Okay, I think that was our final question. If there are no others, I really appreciate all of you being here. I look forward to your participation in the next year. We have the room for another hour or so, so feel free to do your networking. And again, thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate it.